Hello everybody, my name is Christian Quick and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the block specifics. We are going to take our cement block and we're going to abuse it. We're going to give it so many things that we're trying to find all the difficult stuff. An advanced block is going to be a block that requires its own class. That is going to be the next video. In this video, we're going to be talking about all the attributes that you can give it, such as air, strength, requires tool, emissive lighting, sounds. This is going to be an interesting video. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is air. Let's give it the attribute and see what it does. Alright, so now we are in the game, and here we have our cement block. So if it is air, you think that we would walk through it? No. Air is a little bit different. So look on the grass. See how I have this tiny little black outline, the outline saying I have a block, and notice that when I go onto here, it doesn't exist? This makes it a non-contactable block. I cannot break it. If I place it, I can place it, but once it's placed, it's placed. You can stand on it because it is a solid block, but there is absolutely nothing you can do. If for whatever reason you decided to put this in your world and you said, oh no, I don't want that there, don't feel too bad. You can actually get rid of this by taking a piston, moving it on the side, and then getting rid of it with a redstone block. So, if you ever accidentally place this in your world, it's not gone forever. You could also use /fill, but that can sometimes be a little bit of a mess. If it's a small mistake, it's easier to just fix it like this. The next one that we'll be going through, so I'll just kind of go through the alphabet. We're going to go through allows spawning, and here you're going to see that it says, oh no, there's an error. We're going to need typed context predicate entity type and a bunch of that mess. So basically, this would just mean that we're going to need an always and never statement, and we don't have those. But where do we find them? So the best way I would look for this, a lot of these are actually going to have this. If you double hit shift, it'll ask you, basically in here, if you look up blocks and then go to include non-project files, it'll take you to blocks from the net.minecraft.block. Click on that, and then go for your search, and from here we have the allows spawning, and you can see how it says blocks always, solid block always, and stuff like that. We'll get into there. But here you can see that there's an always and never statement. Now, here is the entity type that it's talking about. So if we have this, we can just copy this over, Control C, put it at the bottom of your code. If you want to try and see how it goes through everything with their register, they put their register at the bottom. So we can put our stuff on top. Would sound like a very good idea. So let's come over here, Control V, and then you can see that it's not being used. But here, if we did, so there is blocks equals never, but I believe this you're going to want to do bold mod blocks, and from here you can do always. Now you can see that the always statement is being taken, and then if I decide to say never, then this one will be used. Allow spawning simply means, do I want entities to be allowed to spawn on our block? So this is like the difference between slabs. Slabs, this would be no, and then on blocks, it is yes, as long as the conditions are met, such as light levels and stuff like that. So that allows spawning. The next one is called block vision, and then we can do same thing. So we can do mod blocks, always and never. So here, it says that there is a problem with our always statement. And it is because there is actually another one in this case, in which there is another always and never. I have to find it. Block state, block worldview, and position. So these ones we're also going to need, as well as our entities. So we're going to hit in here, come into here, and suddenly, now that we are talking about our blocks, it's fine. So if you're going to be using the always and never, just know that you're either going to be dealing with an entity or you're going to be dealing with your block view world position. So it either deals with an entity or it deals with the block. So let's take a look at actually what this does. So let's first keep it as always, and then let's put it as false, and I'll show you what the difference is. Alright, so now we are in a world, and we can see blocks vision is set to true. And so there is some empty space, and I walk into it, and it's a solid block. So it's hard to get inside the block to see if it's blocking our vision or not. So I got a horse. And if we go into here, it's going to suffocate me, but you're going to see how it blocks my vision. I can't see anything when I'm in here, so I can't tell where I'm steering. Leaves actually has this set to never, but let's take a peek at what this looks like when we have it on set to never. So now we are back in the world, and I set it to never, so I come in, and now it is completely invisible. It doesn't have like the leaves texture where you can see through it like that, and there's like a little panel, right? It's completely invisible, and then when we back out, you can see it again. The next one is called breaks instantly. And so basically what this is we have the abstract settings of material stone. So basically it is trying to say that this block is, it's basically stone. It is a stone block. And if I break it with my hand, it's comparing it to stone, but overriding it with the breaks instantly, it just means that as soon as I try and touch it, it's just going to break instantly. That's kind of self-explanatory. It should still drop the block, um, the loot table, so it'll still drop. It'll just be kind of be like a flower. Those have that break instantly factor where it just instantly breaks and also gives you the whatever drop it came from. All right, the next one we're going to be talking about is called drops like. And for this one, we can either copy this to something in our mod or Minecraft's. Because we don't have that many thing in our, like, I'm not going to have it drops like another block, and I'm not going to create another block to figure this out. Let's do, we would call this for blocks. So this automatically is saying Minecraft blocks, and then I could set this to anything. So let's actually make it stone. And then let's add the breaks instantly to make sure it can be broken. And then let's go back in the world and see what it does. Now, drops like is really interesting because it is almost like an overridden file. So if I break stone with my bare hand, what do you think will drop? If you guessed cobblestone, then you're correct. The reason this is because it's taking the loot table, and as long as my hands have silk touch on them, which they don't, it will drop cobblestone. So it also overrides the with the break instantly. So it basically changes all the stuff that's in it. So I think this is a really interesting way to override and re-implement the stone. So basically, it's taking the stone loot table and it's shoving it into our thing, and then we can set this new block to basically do what we want. They actually have this on the torch block because there is torch when it's on the ground. It's called torch. Let's actually grab an item for this. So technically in the code, this is called torch, and this is called wall torch. So since this drops the torch loot table, and this would technically be the same, the way that they have it is they're saying wall torch, so when it's placed against a wall, when you break it, it's going to drop just like a regular torch. It's just for simplistic coding to just ease things up. If you just don't add a loot table, it'll basically do the same thing called drops nothing. So it just drops nothing. So that one's done. There is one called dynamic bounds. This one is used on things with very special and unique shapes so that the box is just like the shape. The best way I can describe this is in the game, when we have our torch here, you can see that it's got its own little voxel bounds, and that is its hitbox. So if I break anything even remotely close, it will break in that block. But you would use dynamic bounds when, if I click out here, it won't break the piston. Even if I get super close to it, it will break the block underneath. Dynamic bounds. Now you can see that I'm looking at the piston, how each an individual shape, the whole thing. Oh wow, there is an actual limit to it. Huh. Oh, that's because technically we're in this block, right? Yeah. So technically it would be as soon as I look into this block. But it's basically taking as soon as I look at the texture, even if I look at the grass, it'll look at the grass, looking at the dirt. So that is dynamic bounds. I would not really worry about this too much. Um, I'm not going to personally use it, but at least you know what it does. Moving on to the E's, we have the only one called emissive lighting, and this one is on context predicate, and I believe that this would be mod blocks always. So emissive lightness is not quite like brightness. If I place it on the ground, you can tell that it kind of has. Imagine it's a brightness, but it's like half a brightness piece. This is you can see how it emits and then doesn't emit. It's very odd the way it is put together, but that is how the emissive works. Which, if you're curious, the light is here with client light. Sky is 14, and then the block under give feedback is 0. So you can see how when I look on the block and on the side of the block it's 0, and then when I remove it, it's still 0 all the way across. So there is an odd brightness, but that's just all it is. So skipping all the way to H for hardness. Hardness is requires a value. And then, so it's coming down to material of stone. So imagine how hard stone is, and then imagine it taking 15 times the amount of time to take to break it. So if it was at, you can put 1.0f, I believe. So this is your float. So when it is at a float of 1.0, if I make this 0.5, this would take half the time to break stone. 1.0 should be the same amount, and then 2 times 0 would be twice the amount, or twice the hardness of stone. So if you want to make a block softer or harder, you can use your stone. And then remember that with your material types, if you want, you can change this to other things. So if I said I want to make it the material of wool, then your hardness will suddenly, you can vary it based on that, but try and keep it to whatever you want to, whatever it's most like. So these are basically categories, and then you can adjust your hardness to the exact block, but as long as it's still in the same category. Moving on to jump velocity multiplier. Now this one's going to be a little interesting. Let's set this to 5 or 5.0f. Either one will do. I think it's best to put on the f when it is necessary in case you want to do 0 dot something. So to show you that you can do half a percent. So let's make it to the 5, and then let's see what happens when we get in the game. Now this one I had mentioned was fun, but if I have auto jump on, it doesn't do anything. You actually have to physically jump for this thing to work, and this is very dangerous. So, you can set it to whatever value you want and adjust it to whatever you think you would need, but just know that if somebody has auto jump, it won't affect it. You have to physically jump for it to do its work. Now this one's a little bit more on the, quotes, complicated side. So let's do luminance. And for this, you're going to make another bracket. We're going to call it state. And then on the outside of the state, because you're talking about the block state, we're going to use this, which is a type of the new lambda expression, I believe is what it's called. And then we are going to use the curly brackets, and then we are going to return whatever luminance that we want. So let's say if I was going to do like 7 or whatnot, always remember to put your semicolon at the end. This should now give off like, half the light of a emission of a torch, but it's more because of the way that it's powered too in all 4 directions. It's more like squared. Slash time set night. And then right here we can see that our things now have a light level of 7. You can always check this with your F3 key. And we can see that the block I'm looking at is, so this is talking about the block that I'm either on. This is talking about my target block. Your target block doesn't have 7. So, but I'm looking at 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it would just be gone. So. Or at least that's how it should be. It's a little because I have these blocks up here, they're getting a little intertwined. So it is giving off 7. If I wanted to make it 15, I could make it 15, which would be the same brightness as a torch. So this is, like I said, half the thing of a torch. So let's move on. Moving on to the M's, we got map color. And then for this one, I believe we would just do color dot, I could say green. No, it's map color and then whatever color you're looking for. Lime. So I probably should have seen that coming. So whatever, when you have your map on, when it comes up under the map, what color do you want it to be? If this isn't on there, I think the default is black. So if you want to give it a nice color, so this is almost like, let's take a look at all the colors that we got. We got red, light blue, so a lot of the other ones, dark aqua. So if you want to go through all these colors that you possibly could, dull pink would probably be the best for the cement. I'm not trying to say, oak tan. That's probably a better one. Um, but there is quite raw iron pink. Actually, that might be it. There's a couple of them, so if you just want to go through all the colors that you got, um, that's basically all it is. So if I have like the tan, T-A-N, the oak tan, something like that, maybe raw iron, I don't know, but that is going to be map color. So we can also do no break block break particles. So every time you break something, your block basically kind of explodes a little bit, and then there's these little tiny particles. If you don't want that, you can just take these away by taking the particles. So that'll just take the little particles away. No collision. Now this one, let's take a peek in the world. Alright, so now I got some cement blocks in the world, and so if I was to go through here, if you remember that when we had the block vision always, it would block the vision. So this puts a default that when there's no collision, you will be automatically be able to see the block, and I will walk in through it as if there's nothing there. So this is kind of like the painting. If I actually had like a real wall, so you could just easily walk through, jump through. It'll make no difference. There's no resistance or something like that. You just walk through it with ease. Can't jump on it. Adding the non-opaque feature is a little bit interesting, and for this context, it won't work on the cement block. So let me open up the world, and I'll show you what opaque does. So when it comes to opaque means that if there is nothing textured if there's nothing on the texture, because for this example, the leaves block is cube on all sides, but we can see through it. We can see how there is no back or side textures, top or even bottom textures. It's literally just the front texture we're looking at, and as soon as we turn on the side, we can then see the other side because we have textures on all sides. But non-opaque just simply means that if there is a hole in your texture, you'll be able to see it. If this was not here and we did not, if there was a hole in this and we didn't have the non-opaque, you would have these free airspaces would just be black. We would also need to add a client class, and we would also need to get cutout, I believe it is. Um, there's also, wait, no, it's not get cutout. There's another one for is translucent. So that is what you would use, but for this, as of now, you would kind of put those together. But for opaqueness, just means the being able to see through it, like in this kind of context. Get offsite type, and then you want offset type XYZ. There is a couple of these. I don't think it's going to do anything with our block. I hope not. Right, checking in. Errors are currently selected and you're prevented from loading. Oops. Okay, so yeah, you definitely can't do that. Back to title screen. So what offset type does is it's basically like how flowers are never always in the center of the block. They're offset from the center in random places, and that's basically where this gets used. But in this case, it's kind of impossible to do that because the cement block is a 16 by 16 texture and takes up the entire block. Um, there's other ways that we would register that, so I wouldn't worry about not having that for now or usually at all. There's better ways to do it. All right. So there is one of these things called post process, and post process is one of those things where you would have your mod blocks dot or not dot but colon always, or it could be set to never. And what does it do? I have absolutely No idea. If we look in the blocks class to kind of give yourself an idea, we would control F and then we would look up post process. And here we can see it is used on the brown mushroom, the red mushroom, and the magma block. And I have no idea through the any context. When I think about a magma block, it's got requires tool, it's luminance, ticks randomly, got a strength, allows spawning, fire and return. So like the spawning is going to be the fire immune. When it comes to post process, set to always. And the emissive lighting, we've already explained what that is. But post process is always for magma block, and then when we go up to the tree, it is set to always. And then where the for these other things, it is also set to always. So I have, since it's always set to always, there's nothing that says it is set to never. It doesn't give me an idea, and then when you put it in the world, you don't really know what you're looking for. So for post process, I have no idea what it does. I don't even know the simulation between a brown and red mushroom. Like I know the similarities between them, but comparing that to a magma block, I have no clue what post process does. If you guys happen to know what post process does, you can let me know. Um, but this is one of those things that's over my head. Going to R, we have requires tool. Now this would be as simple as it's going to require a tool. Now what tool is it going to require? If I don't set this to any tool, it won't do anything. So this one would actually require me to go into Minecraft, tags, blocks, mineable, pickaxe. This is everything that is mineable by a pickaxe. This would make sense to add it in here. So if I wanted to, I could simply just do like this, Control D, and then I put a comma here. Actually, I would suggest that if you're doing this, I would put it at the top. So this is everything that's mineable with a pickaxe. Very strange to do it like this, I would think, but from here, let's put in HMH3, and then cement. And then let's put it in, take a peek. Alright, so now we have our thing, and it does break instantly, and it dropped our cement. So we got this, drops our cement, and then we have netherite axe. It breaks instantly, but does not drop the cement. So it requires tool, depends on what tool you set it to. If I wanted to, I could add it to the axe as well, but for cement, I feel like this would make sense just to put it on the pickaxe. If you do not like the idea that this is even put in here for any reason, because it's Minecraft and you want to make your own folder, that is completely fine. You would just have to go into your own folder. You would have to go into your tags. You're going to have to add a tag called blocks. Ooh, don't make the caps. Blocks. Then you're going to have to add a tag called directory mineable. And then in your mineable, just like how it is in here, you would have to put in your axe, hoe, pickaxe, and shovel. And then for this, we would say new, let's say file, and then we're going to do pickaxe.json. And then in here, we can simply just kind of, I'm just going to copy paste it like this, Control C, Control V, and then from here we can just do like this, and then like this, and then you can see it automatically gets rid of that. And then from here, we would just do HMH3 CEMENT. This does exactly the same thing. It's just if you feel like separating your Minecraft with your mod stuff, if you want to keep them separated, you are more than welcome to do so if you feel like it. This will do the same thing. And then if I go, if I don't want this to be in there, I'll keep it. I'll keep this value on there. But that is what requires tool does. So if we're going to keep it there, let's move on to the next one. So going on with R, we have requires and resistance. Resistance would be a float number. So if I have 15F, this is talking about like blast resistance. So if a creeper blows up, what is the likelihood that this block is going to be broken? If an end crystal, tries and breaks it, what's the likelihood? There, I believe, is 7 or 8 levels of explosion. So you can set your resistance to whatever you want. There is one that's just called requires, and it's going to require something called a feature flag. Um, I wouldn't bother with this one. If we look in our blocks class and then we look up the requires, and then let's see if we can find, so that's requires tool, requires, it's going to say new flag feature, update 1.20. So this will have all your 1.20 stuff. If basically saying that it's supposed to come out in 1.20. Um, I would not really bother with this because everything that you do in your mod is not talking about an update. Do you want to do that? It's completely up to you, but I would just completely ignore this one. Now, strength is interesting. So with strength, you have it talks about your float and hardness, and then your resistance, and then there is your strength. Strength is the overall combination of both of them. So if I said 15, it would be talking about the hardness, and then if I said 14, this would be your resistance. So you can either individually separate them or put them together into one strength, and strength is basically just hardness. In case you want to put them both on there, that's perfectly fine. But one thing that is interesting is if I did -1, so a strength of -1, and then we reload the world. So a wooden pickaxe should be able to break it. An iron pickaxe should be able to break it. But when it's got that strength of -1, this makes it so that the block is completely unbreakable. You can see that it can break other blocks. It's just refusing to break this. It's got a strength -1. It cannot be broken. Same should also go with the resistance because the strength value is your hardness and resistance factor, so you should not be able to blow this up either. Slipperiness. This one is another one of those fun ones. So if you had slipperiness and jump velocity, you're up for either a really good time or a really bad time. Slipperiness is usually set from 0 to 1, and I set this thing to 15. So I'm going to get absolutely astro blasted if I just happen to clip this thing correctly. Oh yeah. This thing is going to be fun. Alright, here we have this nice big cliff and this nice running edge. This will definitely kill me. Oh. Oop, there it is. That was actually really fun. I want to try it again. So this time, I'm basically at negative. My z coordinate is basically at 0. So if I launch myself, yeah, look at that, 2,000 blocks of travel, just like that. All right, going for solid block, we could put this as our mod blocks, and then say always. And this basically says that the block is always solid. So that is that's all that does. You can set this to also always false, and this basically says, can I walk through it? Yes or no. That's all that is. Sounds is a little bit interesting. So for this one, we're gonna have to call something called block sound group, and then we're gonna hit dot, and this is all the sounds that we can gather. Let's flick through it nicely. So we've got wood, sand, stone. Um, so each of these blocks have their own unique sound. I mean, oh, I thought it said glass. I was looking at grass. I'm pretty sure glass should be in here, unless I already passed it. So glass has that very distinct sound. So I mean, they all have their own unique sounds technically. Slime. And so if you're looking for something to copy, what grass? Didn't know that made a different sound. But oh, glass was the first one. So if you wanted to have it something like that, that would do well. I'm gonna keep it as stone. I believe is the default. It doesn't. I don't think it automatically covers. So if I said that the material was wood, and I don't have a block sound group, the default will automatically be stone. So keeping that in mind, the block sound group will do that. A group it will recover the sound group. It will cover five things. So every time you walk on it, jump on it, fall on it, break it, and the sound when you place it. So those are the sound group that these are all looked on. They all have their unique sounds. So that is your block sound group for sounds. Suffocates. Suffocates is another one of those we could just do always or false. So if you're in the block, that would be you're gonna start taking suffocation damage if you're always in the block, and yep, that's practically what that does. Ticks randomly. Now, this wouldn't make sense for cement because it doesn't do anything through time. So, if I was making, let's take a look at a plant. So let's look up some sort of plant that grows. I was gonna say blueberry. Said that's not in the game. I said strawberry. That's also not in the game. They're called sweet berry bush. So has a ticks randomly on here, and that is because if we were to look at the bush, it has a maximum age of 3, and it basically says has random ticks, and then here is the random tick. So randomly throughout the game, it's going to look for some random ticks, and then it's going to simply just add 1 to the age if the randomness of the integer meets up with it. So basically, this would be for something that grows or something that changes through time, such as like the copper blocks when they decay. That would also use a random tick. There is a bunch of things that random tick could be used with. So as of now, I mean, just normally, we have our takes randomly. If I said I want to make wet cement and then I wanted it to, with time turn into dry cement, that would be more like the copper turning into oxidized. And then I could give wet cement its own, it's maybe a little bit slippery and it's non-solid. But then as soon as it turns into it randomly ticks it, I could have it change into just cement, in which it would be dry. You can walk on it and stuff like that. So that is one way to do that. Or you could have it like how concrete. You make concrete powder. As soon as it touches water, bam, concrete instantly, like that. But that is how ticks randomly works. So it doesn't really apply to this block. I could make it apply to this block, but this is just about the attributes. So velocity multiplier. We could also set this to 15, just for fun. If we remember in our last example, we are here again. So our velocity, or our slipperiness, moved us to about 2,000 blocks instantly, and the velocity multiplier that I've also put at 15 will not put you as far, as you can tell. So if you want to take something a lot more calm and tame, this would be a lot easier way to go. So this only moved us probably about 50 blocks. Velocity multiplier is basically slipperiness, but it's basically it's a lot subtler slipperiness. That's how I use it, if I was to use it. And that is going to conclude all of our special attributes that a block can hold. Now, we didn't talk about glass and stuff like that. We will actually make glass in a separate video, and I believe it is actually going to be quite a little bit far from now. But when we get there, we'll get there. We'll talk about transparent blocks, and from there we'll probably actually no, even earlier. Never mind. When we're gonna be making some plants, that's when we'll start making the client class, which will make it so that we can have see-through blocks. But as of now, that is basically all of the things. The only thing I don't know how to use that is that post block, the post process. I have no idea what that does. I mean, I know how to use it, quotes use it. I know how to put it in the thing. Is it working or functioning or doing anything? Probably not. But if you guys want to mess around with all those are majority what they are. That is how what they do. And then if you want to, you can actually mix them up and have as many as you want. There is some that necessarily wouldn't work together. In some cases, things are going to be a little bit interesting. So here I have non-collision And I also have solid block as always. Now, I would think that when something is being strict, such as calling it always, whether you put it after or before would change it. So will it be non-collision or would it be solid? Let's take a look. And the answer is no, it is not solid. Even if I specifically tell it to be with an always statement, for whatever reason, non-collision wins the debate here. And it's not because it's first, it just literally just overrides it. So it doesn't matter what order you have them in, non-collision will win. I also have suffocates on here, and you can tell that it also is not doing anything. I'm not suffocating when I am in the block at all. So if you want to mess around and see what you can and cannot do, that is the best way to do. See what things override the others, but there are just some things that are like that. So suffocates and solid block, it does not matter because if non-collision is somewhere in there, it will be a non-collision block. You will not suffocate, and that's just how it's going to be. But anyways, for now, that is all we're going to be doing for this. So block attributes. I'm not too sure what I want to call this yet because it's not an advanced block. Um, but I'll figure out by the time the video title comes out. You've already seen it, so it doesn't really matter. I just have to figure out a video title while this whole thing processes. These videos do actually take quite some time. I do have a clock down here, so if you wanna take a gander here and there, you can see how long usually these take. I mean, it's usually me just setting things up, and then just explaining them. Um, but the setups don't take that long. I basically speed run the speed run and everything. But anyways, that is going to be all it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. And without further ado,